Israel faces South Africa UN's top court for genocide in Gaza. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Shuhaida Arifin and you're watching World Today. Malaysia welcomes the Madrid Criminal Court's decision on rogue arbitrator Dr. Gonzalo Stampa, who was found guilty contempt of court and was sentenced 6 months in prison as a significant victory for the rule of law. According to Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Law and Institutional Reform, Datuk Seri Azalina Osman said, the decision will also help preserve the sanctity of international arbitration as an alternative form of dispute resolution. Malaysia is also confident that this landmark decision will serve as a further deterrent to the ominous actions carried out by the perpetrators of the Sulu fraud. In a statement last night, the minister said the government will continue to ensure that the sovereignty, security and interests of Malaysia are protected at all times. The Criminal Court in its decision found that Stampa had deliberately acted with the aim of preventing the annulment order from becoming effective, an act which is unbecoming of a lawyer. The Criminal Court further found that Stampa has an obligation to comply with the orders of the Madrid High Court of Justice, regardless of his opinion about the validity of such court orders. Earlier, Datuk Seri Azalina in a post on X said the efforts by Madani government is addressing and putting a stop to the Sulu fraud has not been in vain and that the government persists in the fight for justice and will continue efforts to annul the final award. Israel and South Africa face off at the UN's top court from Thursday after Pretoria accused Israel of genocidal acts in Gaza, charges the Israelis have dismissed as blood libel. In an 84-page submission to the National Court of Justice ICJ, South Africa urged judges to order Israel to immediately suspend its military operations in Gaza. South Africa alleges that Israel has engaged in, is engaging in, and risks further engaging in genocidal acts against the Palestinian people in Gaza. Top officials from the two countries will face off in the ICJ's Great Hall of Justice, housed in the extravagant Peace Palace in The Hague. The ICJ rules on disputes between states, and while its decisions are legally binding, it has limited power to enforce them. The court would in theory order Israel to stop its invasion, but it is highly doubtful it would be obeyed. South Africa has filed the case against Israel because both countries have signed the UN Genocide Convention, created in 1948 as a response to the Holocaust. Pretoria's case is that Israeli action in Gaza is intended to bring about the destruction of the substantial parts of the Palestinian national, racial and ethnic group. South Africa wants the ICJ to impose so-called provisional measures or emergency actions, while the broader case is being considered, which would probably take years. Other measures requested by South Africa include reparations and reconstructions of Gaza, plus the safe return of displaced Palestinians, refugees. A suspected Israeli drone strike on southern Lebanon killed a senior commander in Hezbollah's elite Radwan force as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken travels the region, attempting to prevent the outbreak of a wider war. Hezbollah, in a statement, announced the killing of a commander for the first time in 3 months of cross-border clashes with Israeli forces. A security source told AFP Wissam Hassan Tawil had a leading role in managing Hezbollah's operation in the south near the Israeli border. He is the second high-profile killing in Lebanon this month, following a strike in Beirut stronghold of Hezbollah last week, which killed Hamas deputy leader Saleh al-Aruri, heightening fears of the conflict spreading. Violence has also surged in the occupied West Bank, where late Monday the Palestinian Health Ministry reported 3 deaths by Israeli fire. Israeli police confirm 3 were killed during a raid in Tulkarem in the northern West Bank to arrest a wanted terrorist. Meanwhile, Blinken arrived in Tel Aviv late Monday as part of a regional tour seeking to avert regional escalation. He will hold tough talks with the Israeli authorities and discuss the further of Israel's military campaign in Gaza. The fighting, now in its 4th month, has reduced swathes of the narrow Palestinian territory to rubble and prompted international concern over dire humanitarian conditions. At least 23,084 people have been killed, including 9,600 children, and nearly 59,000 wounded in Israeli attacks on Gaza since 7th October. A wave of Russian strikes killed 4 people across Ukraine on Monday as authorities in the Russian border city of Belgorod evacuated hundreds due to Ukrainian shelling. As the war approaches its 2nd anniversary, both Moscow and Kiev have accused each other of causing dozens of civilian casualties in a sharp escalation of attacks. Russian missiles hit a shopping center and high-rise buildings in Zelensky's hometown of Kryvyi Rih, killing 1 person. A separate missile attack on the western region of Khmelnytskyi killed 2 people, while an elderly woman in the Kharkiv region died after being pulled from the rubble of her home. Moscow said in its latest defense ministry briefing that it had struck only military targets. Bolstered by Western air equipment, Ukraine's defense forces had been destroying most of the drones and missiles that Russia launched in regular aerial strikes. Ukraine has warned it needs continued support to sustain its air defense systems amid the escalation in aerial attacks. Russian territory has also seen renewed drone attacks as its air defenses downed 2 Ukrainian drones over the border region of Bryansk on Monday. The announcement came as Russia moved around 300 people from the border city of Belgorod because of Ukrainian shelling, the biggest evacuation from a major Russian city since the conflict began. Kiev's forces have launched waves of deadly strikes on Belgorod, which lies less than 32 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne resigned on Monday as President Emmanuel Macron prepared to unveil a long-awaited cabinet reshuffle in a bid to give new momentum to the final 3 years of his presidency. After days of intense behind-the-scenes maneuvering, Education Minister Gabriel Attal, 34, was emerging as the favourite to succeed Borne. The presidency in a statement emphasized that Borne and other ministers would continue to handle daily business until a new government is named. While some expected a new prime minister to be swiftly named during the evening, a source close to Macron said the announcement would come only on Tuesday morning. It was not immediately clear if this was due to a deliberately slow choreography by the presidency or last-minute objections from heavyweight government figures over the possible naming of Attal. Commentators see the reshuffle as essential to relaunch Macron's centrist presidency for its last 3 years and prevent him becoming a lame duck leader after a series of crises. Since he defeated the far right to win a 2nd term in 2022, Macron has faced protests over unpopular pension reforms, the loss of his overall majority in parliamentary elections, and controversy over immigration legislation. Born 62, the second woman to lead the French government, has weathered these problems but never dispelled doubts about her future. Under the French system, the president sets general policies and the prime minister is responsible for day-to-day government management, meaning the latter often pays the price when administration runs into turbulence. The UN Rights Chief on Monday condemned the violence and repression during controversial elections in Bangladesh that were boycotted by the opposition. Meanwhile, Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina dismissed the opposition's criticism of the country's general election as illegitimate as she celebrated securing her fifth term in power. Hasina has presided over breakneck economic growth in a country once beset by grinding poverty, but her government has been accused of rampant human rights abuses and a ruthless crackdown on dissent. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk said in a statement that thousands of opposition supporters have been detained arbitrarily or subjected to intimidation. Turk said that mass arrests, threats, enforced disappearances, blackmailing and surveillance were all methods reportedly used by law enforcement officials in the months leading up to the vote. He also lamented reported acts of political violence, including arson attacks allegedly committed by opposition groups. Around 25,000 opposition supporters have been arrested, including key party leaders, since 28 October, with at least 10 of them had reportedly died or been killed in custody. The opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party (BNP), which has seen its ranks diminished by mass arrest, called a general strike and along with dozens of others refused to participate. Senior BNP leader Moin Khan called it a fake election and said the government was illegitimate, while Hasina branded the BNP as a terrorist organization. Wayne Lapierre ran the National Rifle Association (NRA) as Wayne's World for decades, a lawyer for New York State said at the start of the gun rights group's corruption trial 3 days after Lapierre suddenly resigned as chief executive. New York Attorney General Letitia James had sued the NRA and its longtime leaders in August 2020, saying the group diverted millions of dollars to fund luxuries for top officials, including travel expenses for Lapierre to several resorts. In her opening statement, state lawyer Monica Connell said that NRA officials failed to obtain board approval for conflicts of interest and insider transactions, arranged no-show contracts for associates, and retaliated against whistleblowers who suspected wrongdoing. James has said the NRA's and Lapierre's misconduct violated state laws governing non-profits. The NRA, founded in 1871, has denied wrongdoing and said it has made reforms. It has also accused James of targeting it for political purposes and violating the First Amendment of trying to silence its speech. Defense lawyers are expected to present their opening statements in the Manhattan courtroom on Tuesday, where Lapierre is expected to testify later. The trial comes at a difficult time for the NRA, which has seen revenue slide 44% since 2016 and membership drop by nearly one-third since 2018. Longtime communications chief Andrew Arunandam was named interim chief executive. Since taking over in 1991, Lapierre built the NRA into a political powerhouse that pressed Washington and state houses to expand gun rights, even as mass shootings mounted nationwide. Coming up, Ecuador declares state of emergency after narco boss jailbreak. Stay tuned. Ecuador declared a state of emergency after a dangerous narco boss escaped from a maximum security detention and unrest broke out at several prisons in the violence-plagued country. President Daniel Noboa announced a 60-day mobilization of soldiers in Ecuador's streets and prisons as a manhunt was underway for gangster Jose Adolfo Macias alias Fito. There would also be a curfew from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily. The state of emergency, Noboa said, would give members of the armed forces all the political and legal support they need to carry out their duties in a battle against what he described as narco-terrorists. On Sunday, the leader of the powerful Los Choneros gang was found missing by police conducting an inspection of a prison in the port city of Guayaquil. The prosecutor's office had opened an investigation and filed charges against 2 prison officials allegedly involved in the escape of Vito. The gang leader had been serving a 34-year sentence for organised crime, drug trafficking and murder since 2011. This is his second prison escape. The last was in 2013 when he was recaptured after 3 months. United Airlines said it has discovered lost bolts on Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes in its fleet during preliminary inspections following an Alaska Airlines mid-flight incident. According to the carrier, it has found instances that appear to relate to installation issues in the door plug. For example, bolts that needed additional tightening. On Friday, an Alaska Airlines passenger plane made an emergency landing after the door plug component blew out. United said they are working to return their Boeing 737 MAX 9S to service in the days ahead. United has cancelled 200 MAX 9 flights since the incident. A door plug is a cover panel used to fill an unneeded emergency exit in planes with smaller seat configurations. Following the Alaska Airlines incident, the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) ordered operators to ground 171 jets with the same configuration. U.S. investigators continue to probe Friday's incident, but analysts have posited that the fault may stem from a manufacturing or quality control defect. With 79 MAX 9 planes, United has the largest fleet of the aircraft in question. On Monday, the FAA announced that it had approved a roadmap for carriers to complete inspections that include both left and right door plugs, components and fasteners. Malaysia has temporarily grounded 3 Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes operated by Lion Air despite different configurations from the plane that had to make an emergency landing in US last week. 3 Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes, the only ones Indonesia had, were grounded starting from Saturday until further notice. Transport Ministry spokesperson said the Lion Air planes had a mid-cabin emergency exit door type 2, whereas the Alaska Airlines plane had a mid-exit door plug, adding it will coordinate with the FAA, Boeing and Lion Air to monitor the situation. In October 2018, a Lion Air MAX plane crashed in Indonesia, killing all 189 people on board. A fire erupted at a hospital in southern Iraq, sending smoke through a maternity ward and killing 4 babies who had been born prematurely. The Iraqi Red Crescent said in a communique that 150 children and 190 adults were evacuated from the fire in the town of Diwania, about 175 kilometers south of Baghdad. The fire was caused by an electrical short circuit that lit waste paper and materials belonging to a company renovating the hospital.
تم إخلاء المرضى الموجودين بالمستشفى والخدج، ومن المعروف أنه المرضى الموجودين في الخدج حالتهم تكون حالة حرجة، وتعتبر ردهات الخدج من الردهات الحرجة ذات العناية الفائقة. توفوا 4 من عندهم لأسباب تتعلق بأمراض الصدر، والآن بناء على توجيه دولة رئيس الوزراء الأستاذ محمد الشيع السوداني تشكيل لجان تحقيقية.
Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani ordered the firing of those responsible for negligence. Safety norms are rarely respected in the construction and transport sectors in Iraq. In late September 2023, about 100 people died in fire caused by fireworks in a crowded marriage hall in the north of the country. 11 people were injured following an explosion at the Sunman Hotel in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. According to Fort Worth Met-Star, out of those injured, 1 person was critical, 2 were serious, and the rest were minor injuries. 1 person was unaccounted for after a search of the scene. Officials offered no details of the cause of the blast, but said a family reunification area had been established in the Sundance Square pedestrian district. A vehicle crashed into an exterior gate of the White House complex in Washington shortly before 6 p.m. on Monday. U.S. Secret Service Chief of Communications Anthony Gagalimi said a driver was taken into custody as the cause and manner of the incident is being investigated. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the incident. Last month, a Delaware man was charged with drunk driving after he accidentally crashed his vehicle into U.S. President Joe Biden's motorcade. The U.S. Secret Service said there was no protective interest associated with this event. Up next in sports, Malaysia secures a draw with Syria in friendly ahead of Asia Cup campaign. Stay with us. Kicking off our sports segment this afternoon, the Harimau Malaya squad drew 2-2 in a friendly match against Syria this morning. Arif Aiman and Paul Josu scored a goal each for the national team in Doha, Qatar, ahead of their 2024 Asia Cup campaign. The national squad went ahead at the 39th minute mark through Arif Aiman. Malaysia managed to retain 1-0 scoreline until the first half whistle blow. In the second half, Syria ramped up their offensive play in search for an equalizer. It was not until the 70th minute that Syria's Pablo Sobak found the net to level the game, and just within 5 minutes, they went ahead by scoring another goal through Ibrahim Hessar. The lead, however, lasted mere minutes when Paulo Josu scored the leveller in the 78th minute. Malaysia will take on Jordan in the Asian Cup Group E opener at the Al Janoub Stadium on 15 January. Qatar returns to the spotlight this 12th January, little more than a year after the first World Cup held in the Arab world, when the relocated and delayed 2023 Asian Cup gets underway amid a seismic shift in football's global order. Fueled by massive sums of Saudi cash following huge investment from Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, West Asia is now undoubtedly the dominant financial power in the game. But it remains to be seen whether that transfers to preeminence on the pitch. Qatar will go into the tournament as defending champions, having picked up their first title in 5 years ago with a surprise victory over 4 times champions Japan in Abu Dhabi. Following China's withdrawal as hosts because of its rigid zero-COVID policy, Qatar will now also stage the tournament for the third time in its 68-year history. China's footballing gold rush has petered out since it won hosting rights, and Saudi Arabia has emerged as one of the most powerful forces in the game. Emboldened by Qatar's success in hosting the 2022 edition, the Saudis emerge as the only candidate to host the 2034 World Cup, having already organized the Club World Cup and won the rights to host the 2027 Asian Cup. Now over in England, Manchester United's Diego Dalot and Bruno Fernandes scored in each half to secure a 2-0 win at Wigan Athletic in the FA Cup fourth round on a bitterly cold night at DW Stadium this morning. The victory over the third-tier side was a welcome relief for the 12-time FA Cup winners, who are out of Europe and the Carabao Cup and languishing 8th in the Premier League. Ten Hag's side comfortably avoided an 8 defeat in 14 away matches in all competitions since last season's FA Cup final, which they lost to neighbours Manchester City. Dalot scored in the 22nd minute at Wigan when Marcus Rashford had a shot blocked before laying the ball off the Portuguese, who took a touch before finding the bottom corner of the net from just outside the 18-yard box. Fernandes doubled United's lead in the 74th with a penalty after Liam Shaw caught the captain's foot in the box. Ten Hag's side had 33 shots, 14 on target, compared to Wigan's 9, with Rashford had 8 attempts, 4 on target. League One side Wigan beat Manchester City at Wembley to win the 2013 FA Cup in one of the competition's major upsets, but they were outplayed by United despite their best efforts. Franz Beckenbauer, one of the Germany's greatest football players, who captained the team to a World Cup victory in 1974, then won the tournament again as manager in 1990, has died at the age of 78. Beckenbauer collected 103 caps for West Germany, winning the 1972 European Championship, and then the World Cup on the home soil, having lost in the final to England in 1966. Beckenbauer was a classy, dominant presence on the pitch for the West Germany and Bayern Munich in the 1960s and 70s, using the calmness on the ball and effortless distribution that marked his midfield performances to virtually invent the central defensive sweeper role, where he found most success. His Bayern Munich team was the best club side in the world during the mid-1970s, winning 3 successive European Cups and 3 combined German team. And with that, we reach the end of this afternoon's bulletin. In our top story today, Israel faces Africa UN's top court for its genocidal acts in Gaza. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. in TV1 in Southern Berita RTM for more news. From river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Thank you for watching.